Guys, Vina here, and where I am, it's like this gloomy Sunday, um, rainy, cold, damp, wet attitude, and yet I don't feel that way. Um, so that's a good thing, at least for me. How's everybody doing? I hope you're doing pretty good, hanging in there, um, trying to keep yourself just minute by minute but inching through with love, because we know that love is always there. One of the most important things that I try to stress each and every week is doing everything with that neutrality of love, right? With that, knowing that it is all powerful, it is the only force, it is the absolute, no matter what it looks like to us physically, that neutrality, that powerhouse of love is the overriding force of everything, right? And the more we realize that, the more that we integrate that into our day to day, minute by minute life, right? Um, we start seeing things differently. We start experiencing things differently through a lens of love. Okay. Um, when we're overwhelmed, like we are now, with all this crap that's trying to get our attention, okay, then we're looking through the human lens, right? Sure. But we can choose to take those glasses off. Okay. Gee, look how puffy my eyes are. Um, that's due to sinuses. Sorry about that. And put on the lens of love, then we're seeing things from a different perspective. That's not being positive. That's not being hopeful. That's being realistic. Okay. Because right now, okay, we're mostly seeing things through a human negative lens, right? Just like today, it's really cloudy, no sun, it's raining, and it's cold, okay? But the sun is still there. But I'm not seeing the sun, right? I'm not seeing the sun because the clouds are in the way. But the sun has obviously got to be there because it's a constant presence and it's still light out. It's just cloudy, but I'm not seeing the sun. The same with when we're looking through just a human lens, we're only seeing the human side of things. When we look through the lens of love, right, we're seeing a much wider perspective. So we're seeing, okay, we are seeing the clouds, we are seeing the gloom, but we're also seeing the light. And that's what I mean by the neutrality of love, the entire picture. Okay? And that neutrality of love, what it does, okay, it lets you see reality, the whole picture, not just the bull BS that you think that's only going on, and not just the good, but the whole integrated picture. which is reality. I told you guys, and I probably tell you this every single week. I'm not an optimist at all. I don't, everything's great. Everything's just, and I'm not a pessimist. Everything sucks. No, I'm a realist. The bigger whole picture. I'd rather set my sights on the neutrality, the middle, okay, of the scales than all on one side or all on another. And that is why each time I speak, I can bring you stuff that's actually going on, but I can also show you the stuff that's what we'll say is behind the scenes of what's going on. Okay? That is why stuff does not swallow me and, excuse me, make me feel defeated. Okay? And once you start working with that perspective from the energy of love, and when I say working with the energy of love, you're not putting your expectations in there. You are knowing, connecting to the energy that you know is the only power that is there. However, that may manifest. Okay? And you allow it to peek through in ways that you can understand. Okay? And that's sort of like, how many times have you seen maybe a piece of art, right? And you look at the art and you're like, ugh, ugh, that's like horrific, right? I've done it. They're praising these pieces and it's like, ugh. And then someone else looks at it and they think, oh my God, that's like a masterpiece, right? That is how love works. The energy of love, it individualizes. Okay? We are not, yes, we're in a collective here, right? But we're also in a collective spiritually. Okay? A collective, but one. And I know that sounds contradictory, but it's really not. Love is individualized, yet one, yet all. Love can individualize itself, and it does individualize itself to each and every one of its energy forces. We are those energy forces. I am an energy force. You are an energy force. By the way, to all my love buckets out there, you guys are hilarious. You guys like that term? And that term was literally given to me to say to you guys. And there was a guy that commented on the last video, I believe. Yeah, because that was the first time I used it. And he referred to himself a love bucket. And I just want you to know, whoever you are, you just gave me the biggest laugh. I love that. He so readily adopted that. But anyway, we all are love buckets collectively as a whole, but as one. Okay? We are here, okay, in this narrow, focused experience as humans, but that is not the totality of who we are. All right? It's not. And the quicker you realize it, the quicker you can free yourself from this seemingly unbearable situation of what seems to be going on here now. Because all of this stirring pot stuff is really working on each and every person that's having to go through it in an individual way. It means different things for different people right now. Okay? It really does. And so, if each of you are wondering, oh, why does it just seem like this one side, me, are just feeling the horror of this? Love is working the whole thing out for each and every one of us, including those on the supposed other side, in ways that you can't see. Okay? And if some don't need to be affected by it for whatever reason, they won't be. And that includes both sides. And if some need to be affected by it, there's a reason for that on both sides. And I know I started this off like super strong, but that literally, like, let's just say I was just kind of forced to say all that. um, we are not just this. We are not just this. And um, let's just say that there are many people, okay, who have, most of the people that watch me have some sense of there being more to just this existence, okay? Most people, okay? But there's a lot of people that don't even have an awareness of that. And right now, that's basically the entire sort of Republican Party. They have no sense of uh, karma, the scales of the balance of life, the balance of, what goes out comes back. They have no sense of that. And so they're kind of in the midst of finding that out in their ways, right? But to most of the people that do watch me and don't even watch me, but have a sense of there being more to just this, okay? You know that at some point, if you look and face, if you can accept and face whatever issue you have going on, whether it be on an individual level or a mass level, if you look it square in the eye, not only does it lose its power over you, but you go through it and past it. Okay, and that, like I said, applies to anything individual or on a mass scale, collective scale. But it's facing it, looking at it, because in that sense, you are teetering on that neutrality point, that tightrope, that rope that's stretched across, right? And you're walking on that rope, that tightrope. You're not going more on one side or more on the other. You're just balanced right between it. You will get that view and that understanding of what you need to get to see that bigger picture. Okay? And so, um, sorry if I kind of started off with, that, all that right away, but I almost was kind of, like I said, forced to say all that. So I'm sure there's a reason for all that. So no, I don't apologize. And that kind of goes in line with uh, this main thing that led me to come on here today was someone had said, there's a lot of talk about this ascension and, we're ascending and we're all going to, the earth's going to split and this and that. And I'm not even too sure of all the verbiage that's being used regarding those terms, or, what is being talked about in regards to all that. It's almost as if, like, at some future date, you know, all the good people are going to go here and all the bad ones are going to go here, or light's just going to come down. And it almost reminds me of, like, that the ascension is not the Christian thing, but the other, the rapture for the Christians, it's sort of like that same type of feel for me. And I could be wrong, but I will tell you this. Um, I don't see that type of thing happening. Okay. We are in this 3D human costume for a reason. Okay. We have to experience things in this third dimension. And this is sort of the slug it out dimension. And anyone who's read either of my books knows that this is actually not the worst uh, planet you can come to. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. But it serves its purpose. This is where we can experience karma. We can work out our karma, our karmic obligations. Okay, so that type of rescue is just not coming. I do not see it coming. We're not splitting off. There are split offs in certain realms that do happen, yes, but for this earth and for this dimension, it's just not going to happen the way that I am hearing it's going to happen. And if you actually think about it, for us to go from 3D to a so-called 5 dimension, um, physically is just not possible. Physically. And like I said, those type of things happen in other dimensions. But while we're in this third dimension, it's just, first of all, it would be disastrous for our physical bodies. But also, um, it's just not, there's no cheat. There's no getting out of working out, slugging out our karmic obligations. Okay. There's no one that's rescuing us. That just doesn't happen. Um, and someone had left a comment that they were working so hard to become almost perfect so that when ascension happens, they would be accepted. We don't have to, perfection is not required on this level. This is not the level for perfection. And the spiritual world, that is understood within the spiritual world. We are here to make mistakes. We are here to F up. We are here to work through our stuff, slogging away the best way we can. Perfection is not required of us here. So to put that kind of pressure on yourself is just unrealistic and totally unnecessary. It's just not required. Okay? So I want to make people understand that you don't have to be perfect. Mistakes are expected. It's understood that that's what's going to happen here. Sorry about that. Gotta. Um, we are. It's perfection is just not required of us while we're here on this level. It's just not going to happen, and that is why many people that have had near death experiences always say there's the guides or whomever they met on the other side, there was no judgment and that type of thing, because number one, it is understood that we are here to work through those issues. That's the first thing. Okay. And love doesn't judge. The divine love that is throughout all is non-judgmental, because that love sees the entire picture. Like I said in the beginning when I started talking, the entire picture. It doesn't just see all the bad stuff you did or all the good stuff. It sees the entire picture and flows it into one. Okay? So, all right. I believe I talked about that long enough. I sort of, I feel like a broken record saying each week, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. But each week, or each time I put out a video, just more and more evidence of this prediction I saw back last year, end of last year, about the enemy of my enemy and Republicans starting to come around and work with us. Excuse me. And so we have Mitch McConnell, who's definitely not a friend of Democrats, voting against every single nominee that Trump nominated. Okay, he actually voted with Dems. All right. Then there's another guy, and I don't remember his name, but I'm sure you guys will tell me. He's also a senator, and he started speaking up against the power of Elon Musk. He's a Republican senator, and he started speaking up very loudly, and it looks like he's going to be a little bit of force to be reckoned with. From on the Republican side, there's Chuck Grassley, who once again came through and said, this stuff is, no, you're going a little bit too far. And so it's just going to be more and more of that. And remember, I said, watch out for Thune, Senator Thune. Just watch out for him. I believe that he is going to come through in a big way at some point. Just remember, I said his name. Vance had his little speech he gave over in Germany, and I told you guys, I think it was the last video, how he was just all confused. I just saw him as all confused and just, grasping and not really knowing what to say. Well, that speech was just a nightmare, and he basically turned the entire European community against him. I mean, we were mocked so bad it's not even funny. And speaking of European community, I told you guys last week, um, don't worry about Ukraine because Europe is going to take over. Well, they announced that. The European Commissioner and the German Chancellor said that just this week. Um, we've got Ukraine's back. That's basically what they said, and they do. They're not playing about that. So it's almost like, okay, United States, don't worry about it. We've got them. And then of course I told you about the stuff happening and then being undone, and there's been so much of that. Well, Musk fired all 300, or was it 400, 380 nuclear people from the nuclear commission or nuclear agency, whatever that's called, and then in a sheer act of stupidity, and then realized, oh, geez, that probably wasn't the smartest move. Now they're desperately trying to get those people back. It's almost like maybe you should have kind of found out what they do before you try to fire them. I don't know. Anyway, excuse me. Um, here's something I wanted to point out. And this was like, you ever get one of those true sparks and flashes from the other side, and it only comes from the other side, right? Well, this week I was just sitting at the desk behind me doing some stuff, and it was almost like, psh, gee, the Eagles won the Super Bowl, the Eagles from Philadelphia, and gee, the Constitution, Philadelphia, boom, right? Now, how about this? Not that day, but the next day, someone else made the same connection and remarked it in one of my comments on one of my videos. That's like a double confirmation whammy as far as I'm concerned. But think about it. The Eagles won. They weren't expected to. Um, and they are Philadelphia's team, and the birthplace of our, uh, not the birthplace, but the sense of freedom, Philadelphia, the connect there. So, interesting, right? And that was just like a little, hey, everything's just eventually going to be okay. Now, something I'm given to tell people, that just came through just now. So right now, those wooden blocks of Jenga blocks, right? And you dump them all on the floor, right? And it's just a mess, like just a mess, and it just looks like a haphazard mess. Well, that's kind of what's going on now with this country. It's literally what's going. It's just a haphazard mess. Stuff's just being thrown everywhere. Okay, and then eventually you start putting a block here, a block fits there, block fits here, block fits there, and all of a sudden you've got a symmetrical, great tower of whatever you're making. Okay, so just kind of make the connect that way if you can, because that was literally just given to me um, while I was talking to you guys. Something else, and I'm trying to go through this stuff kind of quickly because I know I talked so long in the beginning, so I'm sorry about that. But it's stuff that I felt that just should be said. The airplane issue. Someone asked me a question about the airplane issues falling from the sky or the accidents, etc. This is the astrology for dummies part, okay? And you know, anybody that knows me knows I'm not calling you guys dummy. I refer to myself as one of the astrology dummies because I'm not a professional. I just happen to know a bit about astrology enough to convey it. Um, and explain it in very simple terms. And it's not because I'm talking down on anyone. It's just because my understanding is very simplified. Okay. So this is the astrology for dummies part, me being the dummy. But the issue with the airplanes is for two reasons. Um, we've got Mars, Mercury square Chiron. Okay. Mars is violence, violent action. Mercury is, amongst other things, travel. Okay. And Chiron is the wounded figure. Okay. They're making a square to each other. A square is tense energy. Okay. And it's a T square. So, um, that is one of the reasons for these plane accidents. And there's also an asteroid called Icarus. Okay, Icarus, for those of you that don't know, was a being whose wings were made, and it's this is mythological, right? But is all this stuff mythological? But anyway, his beings were made by his father and brothers who put together his wings, but made them of wax. And so when he flew too close to the sun, the wings melted, and he came crashing down. Okay, well, Icarus, the asteroid, is also conjunct the sun right now. So, long story short, that is the reason why we're having such a concentrated proliferation of airplane incidents. And it's been going on for a little while. But the good news is all those aspects will sort of be coming to an end by the end of this month. And so we're going to hear less and less about the airplane issues. And granted, let's be honest. I mean, the only reason it seems so bad now because everything is concentrated in one time period, is short period of time. But flying on an airplane is still very safe. Um, Even though I don't fly and haven't for years, and one of the reasons is because the turbulence just it just I was on a plane the last time I was on a plane, it dropped so hard and I became so physically ill, and it just but there are people that are used to that understand it. There was a pilot on that plane with me, and he was taking a nap, and he just we dropped, and he just kind of turned over in his seat and went right back to sleep. So he was flying, from one city to another to get so he could fly a plane. But he had identified himself as a pilot before we started. And I think that was the only reason I just didn't pass out, because of his actions. He was just like so nonchalant about it. But basically, the truth is that it is still a very safe way to fly. And it just seems so bad right now because it's all within a short period of time, like from January the 20 whatever 25th 6th up until now. There's been like a lot concentrated in that little bit of time, but sure, by the end of this month it should be good. um let's see. Here's a question that I was brought up in a strict I was brought up strict Christian, been baptized, went through confirmation, but never felt connected. I love Buddhism and feel more connected. Is that a past life coming through? Not necessarily a past life coming through. A lot of people that I've heard that are Christians and have left Christianity feel like there's just too much to do to be a Christian. And also the worship of like one person, like Jesus, for instance. And so that the idea of Buddhism is much more expansive and puts basically the power in you. And that is where it is. I mean, I've told you guys time and time again, we each have a soul that is just as connected to the infinite, to the divine, as each and every other spirit soul out there. Okay. And another thing is, and this I've said over and over in my books, true spirituality is simple, extremely simple. And that is why it typically goes over most people's heads. Because there's no rituals you have to perform, there's no certain things you have to do or think or worship or whatever. The simpler the simpler your understanding is, the more you can understand true spirituality. So, no, it may not have anything to do with a past life. It's just that you are just realizing that um, the simplest, the simpler something is, the more connected you feel. And that's the truth. One of the things that was told to me by my companion or spiritual guide, whatever you want to call them, before I was returned back here from my near death experience was I just had to live. That was it. Just live, to do the best I could, choose kindness above all else, but just live. And it's in those minute by minute decisions I make about my life that mattered the most. It wasn't about how much I meditated each day or tried to pray each day or go to a church or a temple or a synagogue or none of that. None of that. It was the best decisions I made throughout my experiences in life. That was all that registered what was in here. That was it. That was it. And there's a freedom to that that is just it's unimaginable. So hopefully that answers that question. The next one, great to hear the U.S. was made for democracy. While they are attempting, it's what they're attempting is all too terrifying. When do you see the dust settling? A year to next election, if we have one. Um, I was actually asked that same question by someone else, and the answer that came to me right away was less than half the period of this 4 years. So less than 2 years. And then they asked, I'm taking steps to protect myself from the treasury breach. I just froze my credit at the 3 credit bureaus. They took my advice for conservative investing. Um, okay. And then there was another one that, let's see if I can find that here. Okay, well, um, I can't actually find it, but I actually do remember. So they were asking, what did I feel about private banks versus credit bureaus? I felt that credit bureaus would be the safer bet. Um, so if you can put your money into that, and also or to them, but also they mistook my what I was saying about withdrawing from your 40 or your 401k. I wasn't saying withdraw all the money. I was just saying if you can switch how it invests from like a high risk to one of the lowest stable risks. That's all. Just go stable. Um, a very conservative investing, because there are some stable funds that you can invest in that aren't like volatile like the stock market is. So that's kind of what I was suggesting for that. Credit unions and etc. Um, and someone else wanted to know the purpose of all the countries. I'd be interested in knowing about Africa and China. Um, and so every country, and I think they're asking this because in my book, I do have a chapter in my first book, My Near Death Experience from A to Z. I do have a chapter on North Korea and the reasons why North Korea existed. So they're asking for the other countries. And yes, each country does have its reason for being the way it is. And unfortunately, to the person that asked that, I can't get into each and every country. Like there's how many countries out there, and I don't know all the reasons for all the countries. I only know the ones that I was shown, but I was shown United States, I was shown North Korea, I was shown China, um, and a few others. But each country does have its karmic reason for existing, and its own karmic reason for how people can fulfill their karma in that particular country. Okay? So the overall answer is yes, each country does have its own, but I'm not going to go into listing, each and every country and what that is. No, that's a tad bit much. Um, and I believe that's it for the questions I'm going to cover this week. Oh, and there is one more. This person was asking, how, with the USA being a trusted member of NATO, when Musk has taken apart the documents of the American government that deal with money, weapons, and intelligence, the USA will be with no actual tools to deal with the rest of the world. No, United States, it will at some point face like a sort of individualized attack. Sorry, it will. However, um, it's not going to be like countries against us, like attacking us like that. No, it's just not going to happen um, at this point in time. So we'll be okay as far as that goes. But, every couple of years or whatever, we do have a sort of major terrorist attack, and we will be getting one kind of relatively soon. And when I get more on that, I will let everyone know. Please don't rush onto the comments and say, when is it going to be and who's it going to affect? And no, I just know that there is something coming. But it won't be like, oh, the whole United States is attacked, or, you know, 12 countries are like surrounding the United States attack. No, that's not going to happen. No. Um, and you guys, got to remember something too. We do have like probably overall the best military in the world when you consider our troops and our weaponry and our ships and our planes. I mean, we're not like, like weak little ducklings out there. So, and a lot of countries are aware of that. So, we're like, okay. But as far as like getting massively attacked, um, things are going to eventually straighten out. But right now we've got to go through that Jenga disruptive pile. Okay. And we're in the midst of that now. But let's keep our eye on the prize, that middle of the road, that tightrope. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. I appreciate you all, and thanks for your beautiful comments. And um, if you notice, I try to respond to most of them, um, only because I just respect the fact that if you care enough to comment, I gotta care enough to respond. That's just the way I feel. I don't ignore them at all. So take care and thanks.